Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. We've got the first repeat guest back on the show, Blake from No Dwell. Back on, we're going to catch up with him and keep digging into that conversation because if you tuned in with us last time, we could have kept going for hours. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real-life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, Blake?
Man, all the things plus some more. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah, treading water, keeping up with life as always. But yeah, dude, I'm stoked to have you back on the show. You are our first repeat guest, so I feel like badge of honor there. You can put that on your resume, put it on your LinkedIn. But yeah, we had one hell of a conversation last time. We were really digging into it. It's one of those ones that I felt like if we would have let it, we could have gone on just for one of those 24-hour mega podcasts, put Joe Rogan to shame. But
That's
yeah,
right.
we're on to
Agreed.
continue it, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank God. I didn't know that. I just learned that in the intro that I was the first repeat. So that's pretty cool. I don't know why, but I'll keep trying to do what I'm doing.
Exactly. Well, hey, man, for those that may have not tuned in the first time, shame on you guys. You need to go catch that back up. But if you could, just give us a high level of kind of who you are and what's your role in the industry today.
All right. I got into trucking in 2004, started as owner operator for 6 years, started a company, grew it to 4 million plus and 20 trucks, and then failed. Then started over, and I've grown it back to about double that right now. And we do short haul yard management, and we're building some technology with No Dwell. So the asset based side is called Spot On, and we do again short haul freight out of Kansas City right now, some
Right.
warehousing work and then yard management as well. But then No Dwell is actually trying to solve, basically make it possible to drop and hook everywhere and solve that whole how much time a driver spends waiting problem. The human element of that problem is kind of our why, and working really hard on that. Very new thing, and one of those like trying to find a few little small investments to get us going and get the software built to bring the solution. And so we got a lot going on right now. It's really fun. But obviously coming out of the recession, we're still shaking the off of that. But a lot of good stuff in the windshield. It's really exciting right now for sure.
Well, and that's one of my favorite things about this podcast, getting to chat with guys like you that are, entrepreneurs in the grind of the business, because you don't get to see that side of too many businesses out there. It especially on platforms like LinkedIn, whatever. When you look at a business, it's like how everything's perfect on Facebook or Instagram, right? Like, oh, shiny marketing. But it's like from this perspective, trying to learn and navigate those hurdles of a living, breathing business. It gets messy behind the scenes, and there is grinding and pushing. And so that's why I love getting a chat with guys like you and really dive into the business and what it takes to make this thing really go.
Yes, I look, I can't agree. I love the reason for this podcast. Mentors are so important, and it's something I actually slept on for a long time, and so it's actually extra special to me because my journey in looking for mentors has been very, very fresh. But I've always wanted to, be the one turning back and grabbing the hand of the next person in line and help them get where I'm going. Right. That's always just been the way I think all humans should live. So I've always chosen that path. But I've, whether it's big brother, big sister, or mentorship's big. It's a thing that is kind of. I feel like it's not pushed enough. So I'm really glad. I really appreciate you doing this kind of podcast for sure.
I appreciate that, man. And, you bring up so many thoughts there, but it's like, for me, outside of, marketing, logistics, and outside of podcasting and all that, another big passion of mine is history. I do a lot of archival and stuff like that. And one thing we always deal with on that side is trying to discover the past. And then you figure out that you're really rediscovering the past, because in so many cases, it's like, well, this person was trying to figure out the same thing and then they rediscovered it, but it keeps getting forgotten. And I kind of tie that in with the business world, right? It's like we learn how to round a wheel. And then you've got this next generation up here also trying to relearn how to round a wheel. It's like, if we could just pass on those lived and learned, like think of where we would be as an industry, as a humankind, if we could truly keep up to where we were and just keep growing instead of having to keep reverting back.
Absolutely. The School of Hard Knocks would have a lot less students.
Yes.
Is basically what you're saying there, in my opinion, is
100%.
my walls. I got platinum plaques covering these walls of School of Hard Knocks lessons. And it would have been really smart of me to go ask and get some help. So, I wasn't against getting help. I actually just was a little bit of a limited belief on what people were willing to do. And
Right.
I think that's so important to talk about, because you don't want to not do it out of a fear that they don't want to or don't have time. Let them freaking tell you. That's what I've learned. Let them tell you they ain't got time by either ghosting you, ignoring you, or telling you. But until then, ask. And then that's something that I literally, for like a decade of my career, I was sound asleep on it, busy working crazy hours and trying to build a business, yes, but doing it the hardest way possible.
Yep. Well, I don't want to dwell on this and make it a whole subject of the show, but I think we have to address it. Last time we had you on the show, we were gearing up, two Kansas City guys, for this game, the Super Bowl, and didn't really go the way our part of the globe.
Anybody thought it was going to go, much less what we talked about. I think we even talked a little bit of trash about it's going to happen. So we'll talk about that win next time. So this is a perspective conversation now. It's like we've been to 7 AFC championships in 7 years. We've done, in the 7-year stretch, more than any team in almost every metric.
Yeah.
We have a lot to be happy about. Wondering how in God's creation that game looked like the Broncos game in Week 18 is just, it proves that our brains are very powerful, and that thoughts can get in the way, or what was on the line for him and the team. It was obviously too much for him, I guess. To give Eagles the credit they deserve, they came to play. They came to win.
Yeah. No, there's no downgrading that, for sure.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, our team here in Kansas City, we've watched a pretty solid season, and we've seen no performance like that. So you got to expect the other teams there to show up. I mean, they are rated as the other best team right now, the best team. And I don't know, it kind of makes me relay that back to our entrepreneurial passions, our business and so forth. It's like, it doesn't matter how good you've done this year. It doesn't matter how strategic and how much you've pushed. As soon as you aren't paying attention, aren't covering your gaps, you can get blindsided really easy.
Got to keep the gas pedal down. You really don't. Enjoying the fruits of your labor, if you will, or having the Mai Tai on the beach to celebrate should be very limited, if it happens at all, if you're trying to do real serious big things. It's
right.
You definitely want to smell the roses, but not stop to smell the roses, in my opinion. Just smell them as you go by.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just hang your head out the window real quick and slow the car down. Sure. But stopping is dangerous. If you're on the path to greatness, or whatever you like to call it in your own words.
Tough one to swallow, but at the same time,
it was.
There's tomorrow, so we gotta pick up and keep going if we can.
And we ended up, we were at Manifest. I flew out to Manifest early to watch it in Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
Like how much more fun can you have than that? Manifest is what most would call the largest technology future of supply chain conference of the year.
Okay.
It is actually a very new conference, 4 to 5 years old, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 6,500 people there this time. Very, very big show, and you're able to see everything from automation and warehousing all the way down to the latest technology that's making the supply chain faster and better, up to and including automated hooking air hoses for a spotter truck. One of the things to have spotting automated, one of the linchpins was the way we hook our glad hands on. They were showing that they just did away with the glad hands and thought of a whole different way, and so the thing we thought was going to hold that up is not anymore. So we learned a lot of that stuff, and to that end, I think there needs to be are you familiar with the Screamin' Meanie alarm clock?
I
This
don't
is a
think.
trucker alarm clock. I think back 20 years ago, they only sold them at truck stops, as far as I understood, before Amazon and all that. They're just blasting loud alarm clocks, Screaming Meanie. There needs to be one of those for AI right now. We need to have a pay attention moment, a head on a swivel, a slap in the face for this is not just another internet that's going to take 30 years to be doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Right. This is not that. We tend to say it's coming, but that conference told me it's here. It's here
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And many, many, many things. So my advice is learn how to freaking use it so you can be one of the last ones that loses your job. Because if you don't know how to use it, it's going to replace you very quickly, 1 to 5 years. And I shouldn't say I so confidently, but I'm pretty sure this is right. It's because it's here, right? It's here. Tesla's about to sell us Rosie from the Jetsons times 1,000.
Yeah.
And for 25 grand. So what warehouse isn't going to buy those when they can buy 2 for every 1 person that works right now for the salary they pay them, right? So we got a situation, and I think we need to be a head on a swivel. But it was it's a really fun conference too, because you get to see what people are doing to make it better, and this is going to make it better. We just have to be ready for this, labor situation is where my Chicken Little stuff comes from. Is we got to catch them. We got to catch this labor thing that's about to just come into our lap faster than anything that's ever happened by a lot. And so anyway, I've learned a lot about that. Like the AI agents are almost perfect.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things.
It's impressive.
CSRs.
Yeah.
It is. It's crazy. And companies that build starting now are likely to build with that, not with Indeed and not with 10th Street, so we just have to really pay attention and make sure that we're all here for each other for these moments and know they're coming.
Oh, definitely. And I think we touched on this a little bit in the last episode we had you on, but that huge thing with AI, it's like, while what we see, well, first of all, what we see of AI in a public sector, ChatGPT, Claude, the other ones that are out there right now, you've got to understand those are bottlenecked to a degree. There's a lot of harness on those for protection means, for just till they master all this good stuff. So we're not seeing that full potential. At the same time, it's interesting because we'll see certain things like, AI has a lot to grow in this area. But at the same time, in these other areas, it's mammoth and it's almost too powerful for its own control in a lot of ways. To divert this into a marketing side, but we can, still relate it to the industry as a whole here. There was a whole thing recently, a guy put on, did a YouTube video on it, but they were using the AI agents. I can't remember exactly what platform it was, but you can see the reasoning now. And that's a popular is instead of just popping out, instead of just popping out, it kind of reasons and it thinks to itself and it shows that to you. And so it's going through, and I'm trying to remember what they were doing with this. I think it was like some fairly simple coding for a website or whatever. But he asked for this to be coded. And in the middle of the reasoning, now this wasn't the final result, but you can see what it's thinking to itself. It started thinking, hey, this is a service that we should actually be charging this individual for. Now, mind you, this individual is on a paid plan to already use the service, but the AI agent itself, separate from its controller, said, I should be charging this person to actually give him this information. And then it argued with itself saying, no, you shouldn't. And it said, yes, I should. This should be a $5,000 job. We should set up a Stripe payment link and charge him $5,000 to do this. And it didn't end up doing that. But the guy that was doing it saw this in the justification. He's like, whoa, that's crazy. So he tried to push and say, hey, I agree with you and I'm willing to pay. Tell me where to pay. And it tried its hardest to actually open an account and set up a payment link for this. Now, all this is being shut down from, the guardrails on it.
Sure.
But it just kind of puts into context.
It's capability.
Yes.
Capability. Yeah.
If those guardrails are removed, it's much bigger than we think it is. And it gives you a slight view of where it's going to go.
Yes. And to the flip side of it, imagine, so those platforms are using every piece of data that's publicly available electronically
Right. Right.
to get their answers. What about the ones that have guardrails that keep in only the data that they need to do that specific thing and how good they're going to be at it, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a bunch of mess from the internet, which is, whatever percent untrue or half
Sure.
true or opinion or not, if it doesn't have all that to sift through and it just has the facts that company X wants in its model, it's going to be perfect.
Right.
It is perfect because it's
Right.
not going to have a way to go get other opinions out here. It's just going to reason through what it knows, what we've told it to know.
Right.
Right. And so that's where that vertical is very, that's why it's going to happen so fast, because we're already there with the technology. We just have to get it siloed to how we want it and get it trained and give it enough data to be perfect or damn near, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's like it's happening. I've got a company now. I feel like I can say their name, but I because I love them to death. They're gonna not only go scrape, get a bunch of aggregated opportunity from out there that's out there with logins that we have to places with spot freight or whatever, bring it all to us in one spot. But they're also going to they're going to know where to go look, because they're going to look at where our truck is ending in our TMS, know
Yeah.
what to look for without us searching. So it started with us doing a Travelocity search, and then now they're going to go search for us. They're going to freaking call them and book the freight for us based on parameters and
Wow.
data that we have from our TMS, saying, hey, for this lane, they've taken this low before.
Right.
Their goal is this. So we're going to reason through the fact that we're going to fight for this. And if there's 10 options, we're going to call all 10 before we take the low price.
Yep.
But we do nothing. And all of this happens simultaneously to all those places. And the first one that wins back with something, or the one that comes back with the best thing, like it's here.
Yeah.
That's going to be live. We're beta with them, and that's going to be live in like a month. They told me. I mean, it's here. Is
Wild,
my
man.
point.
It's
That's
wild.
everything. That's everything a freaking freight procurement person does.
Well, I think it's exactly how
Much
it's
less
gonna
check
hit the
calls.
industry, right? Like we've talked before, trucking itself has always been a little slower to adopt on stuff because it's so many policies and it's always changing. But we do see a lot of the other sides of the logistics industry like that embracing AI. And I think that's where it's really going to kind of prove its weight in the game and then kind of slowly adopt all the way through. But I mean, like to your point, I've seen other ones recently where these AI agents will do calling to schedule appointments and stuff similar to this.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
the interesting thing was there was one that it called, and there was another AI agent that answered, and they realized that they were talking to one another. And this one said, "I'm an AI agent." "Oh, I'm an AI agent as well. Would you like to switch to a more I can't remember what they called it, but it was called like Gibberlink or something like that. They had their own AI language, and
Yes,
it was more
I've heard that
effective
too.
means of communication. They started talking together. It's like it's interesting to see or envision where this is going to take the industry, but it's 100% going to get there. We don't know exactly when or what it's going to look like. It's here, but I think what it's going to look like in just a decade's time, because I mean, AI as we know it really just kind of opened its eyes at COVID time, right? And then to think this is where it is now, we're only a few years in. So you think a decade out, where could we possibly be? And it's only been a couple years that we've had all these other players in the game. Now we've got Google, we've got Apple, we've got all these different ones. And now, with Trump coming in, I can't remember what he called it, but did that new government agency pushing for AI. It's kind of like when the whole world was trying to get to the moon, right? It's like that was impossible.
No, it's definitely like that.
The greatest minds around the world all working at the same time on one cause happens a lot quicker than you're ready for in a lot of cases.
100%. And I think, to your point, it's whatever the adoption rate is going to be the rate it comes in. It's not going to be the technology advancement rate.
Yeah.
Because it's going to way outpace the adoption rate, and that's why I think it's important to stand and platforms like this and make sure that, other founders and other management and leaders are not ignoring it, thinking it's just the hype of the week. Because it's way more than that. It's when people said it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's literally it's Internet of Things on steroids combined with the internet, as if it happened in 3 years instead of 30, or maybe even less. the dial up 24-hour to download a song to now where we're streaming, we're able to do this.
Right.
So it was a long ride, right? And a long trust adoption curve and all that stuff. But this is different. It's
Yeah.
very, very different, and it's going to do a lot of great things. Don't get me wrong. I mean, amazingly great things. But again, the labor situation. What scares me is the economy, lack of money to spend when they drop 1,000 IRS agents in Kansas City at the same time as we're getting this AI,
Yeah.
thing where we're not hiring anymore, kind of thing. What happens and in that moment, and then people's purpose. If the government catches them and they do a universal basic income, what's their purpose? What's their why when they wake up in the morning? It'll change.
Yeah.
That'll change mentality. It'll change a lot of stuff. So we just have to, if we just talk about it and be ready and think of plans and pay attention, have our head on a swivel and watch the results. And as they come in, try to freaking build safety nets or whatever we're doing. And I don't mean, government based. I don't want to get those two things twisted. But because I'm not a believer in that stuff. But when this happens so fast, I don't know what the other imminent result would be.
Right.
And that's something that's a whole nother level of discomfort on top of all this. But
Well,
it
it's
brings
a
us
good point
abundance,
though. Like you bring that up, and it makes me just think kind of finances in general. And I know that's a massive part for any business to focus on and not even perfect, but just to get a grip on to stay afloat and grow. With your
Right.
experience, I know we've talked at the beginning. You hit failure early on, and then you've came back to a very successful business. So I'd really like to kind of tap in on a little of your lived and learned knowledge around that, financial aspect there.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah. Go ahead.
well, so we kind of covered on that. You experienced some financial struggles within trucking. If we could, like, what is a financial lesson that you would say took probably too long for you to learn?
Man, the first thing that comes to my mind is how powerful working capital can be. But I feel like this might be siloed to me and just my limited belief when this happened. But I had my first go round, I had a couple $100,000 in line of credit left to use.
Mm,
And I was not smart enough to know how much ROI that could bring if I spent it right, because I had
right.
already spent a couple hundred and it felt like I burned it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I just had this like limited thing. Also, you know, understanding ROI on financial stuff. When you start a trucking company, you don't have any cash, something like what Taft does in freight and invoice factoring, can be a tool, right? It's not something you want to run your business on forever, but they exist to be the tool to help people get started or help people
Yeah.
through a hard time. It doesn't, you got to make sure that you understand both sides. It's like they're going to charge 3%. Okay, that's not that much, right? But 3% is not APR. So you have to understand what that means and why that matters. And, so what I learned is when things aren't always exactly what they seem to be, that's kind of a life lesson more than just financial.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure that you can look at what's out there through the lens you're supposed to look at it through. And traditional banks are terrified of asset-based trucking. That's another thing I've learned. The traditional bank, they're not really that big on lending to trucking companies because
Yeah.
it's a dangerous game. And there's a whole bunch of failures. It's a way higher failure rate, than most entrepreneurship things, most verticals. And so that's why they're scared. So their data tells them to be scared. So be thankful that things like factoring exists, because you can still do it even if your bank tells you no. Um, and I've there's been a lot of stuff that has come up, and we actually got through the recession by having to lean on it. We just went and had to go factor a significant amount of our invoices once we got like 22 months into this recession, because
Yeah.
10 to 18 months is the metric everybody was looking at. Like that's our downturns are not that, they don't go that long. But at the same time, you look at the upturn we had before it, and we should have known. We should have known that it was so good for the year and a half that it was good, that the downturn has to last longer, especially when, you know, to the financial point of it, when PPP is going on, where companies are getting
Yeah.
money that they didn't earn, and
Yeah.
that will trick you into thinking that you're doing better than you are if you don't know, if you're not financially savvy and understand how that works. But it is actual fact that you had more cash, so you could go more, you could burn more, and it wouldn't put you out as fast. And there's good things to that and bad things to that, right? The PPP, in my opinion, we didn't take it um, as a financial thing because we were making two and a half, three times the money we normally made. So we're like, we'll leave that for the restaurants that do need it,
Right.
and the hair salons had to close, and all the small businesses that weren't essential, and were able and weren't able to do anything for their people like that. But a lot of trucking companies did take it, and it was millions and millions to some of them.
Yeah.
Um, so understanding markets is a whole nother thing on the financial side too. Is what is the fallout from things like getting checks is really fun. But what people have to understand is when you get a stimmy check, what it does is it all that dollars in that check and the dollars you already had buy less things immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. That's what inflation is. If inflation is such a just a term thrown around all the time, but it's devaluation of the money, not making things more expensive. You have to look at it that way, right? We it's nice to get free money from the government, but that comes at a cost, a
Yeah.
big
Always double-edged
cost.
sword for sure.
And and so a lot of people, got just kind of had this like a different pair of lenses on because their bank was full, you know, and that's something to think about. So anyway, I don't know if I kind of derailed that where we
No.
needed to go with that, but I do think that in our industry, there's a lot of different ways you can creatively finance, and just educating yourself on those things and knowing what you're doing. And we've leaned on all of it, right? We have loans from traditional bank. We have loans from what we call alt cap. I'll give them a little plug. They're in Kansas City, alt cap.
Okay.
They're really awesome. They're kind of the catch-all for the people who just barely didn't make it on the banking. And we wanted to buy trucks at the beginning of this year because of our bloody losses, the last two from the recession. We couldn't get financing from a traditional bank, even the one we already work with.
Right.
Right? They did a workout for us on consolidating some things and extending out the term a year or something to help us through our cash flow. But this alt cap was an awesome opportunity. And then of course factoring, we did that too. We
Yeah.
we, we factored 2/3 of our invoices, and understand that you are the bank's customer.
Mm.
Don't
Yeah.
forget that. Don't go into the bank thinking that they're got the upper hand. Now they have the yes or no upper hand, but you're their customer. So you can ask them for stuff, right? We designed our factoring different, and it made it harder because it was not normal. Like when you do factoring, you get that letter of intent, or letter, is that what it's called? LOI, I think it's called, or not letter of intent. Anyway, you get a letter that says, "Hey, send this bank all the checks for this company." But we didn't factor everything, so we had to go back and say, "Okay, that letter's for only the people we chose to factor." But in the factoring company is even like, I don't want to. We don't know if we can do that. But would you want the business? You know what I mean? You
Right.
just realize what you have when you go to somebody and negotiate. Make sure you get what you deserve, and give them what. If they agree, then that means they know it's a good business decision for them still. So I like to make sure people walk into banks with confidence, even though they know they need them. You still walk in with confidence, and make a deal.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in stone. So
Well, and I think you may be able to speak to this being, a business owner that's been there. But there's definitely a difference in where you can get your money too. And it's not to say, you're locked in by any means. Always go explore your options to see what's best for your company. But I feel like, with some factoring the different options versus traditional banks out there, like oftentimes they understand the industry a little more than a
yeah,
traditional bank can. And
for sure.
terms and stuff, if you don't know what you're signing up for, it can hurt you more than help you at times. So you really got to make sure that what you're going after, that they understand your type of business, and that the program you get locked into is going to benefit you more than in anything else.
Yeah, correct. And something I failed to mention on factoring that is very, very critical for a startup business, especially, or one that needs to lessen their overhead, is you have a collection agency built in. and that's
Oh
really
yeah,
nice,
that's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
Not only do you get your cash tomorrow, you actually have those AR, your accounts receivable list. That's somebody that pays you in 30 hasn't paid you in 60, and you wonder where your money's at. They're already chasing it for you, and so that's a big value too that we leaned on, because that gave our administrator here that was doing that before more time to do other things, like improve safety,
Yeah.
work on organization, build spreadsheets for stuff or whatever we need them to do to help, track a KPI. So there's a lot of other business things you can get done by leaning on that. So where banks do not offer that, that ain't their game at all. So you get value.
One of those KPIs that's coming to mind, especially in the trucking industry, is like cost per mile. And I feel like personally that gets kind of overlooked or overshadowed so much. With I don't know, with your experience in the game, man, I just kind of want to tap in a little bit because I feel like owner operators often focus on like the gross revenue and ignore the net profit side of things, and
Yes.
that can kind of like lead to unexpected losses at the end of the month if you don't really keep track of that. From your experience, could you tap in just a little bit on the importance there of kind of understanding and knowing your cost per mile and tracking your expenses?
Absolutely. Um,
I feel like
it's critical
tackling
if you
this
want to,
and
if it's
being
critical if you want to survive. Two things are pretty critical with that. It's knowing what it costs to do business, and also having a P&L, having a profit and loss statement, and knowing how to read it.
yeah,
Are both of those things are super important to understand how to forecast what you're actually doing. Most people, including myself, when I got in, because I wasn't educated like that, we do what we call bank balance accounting, and that's if there's money in there, we can pay the bill, and that's how most people live their personal life, and that's usually like semi safe to do. But when you get into business, it's a whole nother ball game. And you can't, without the P&L or something very similar to it, you're not going to know what your cost per mile is.
yeah.
And I would say that I'm also a contrarian in the way that we look at stuff. I would encourage people to look at it as revenue per day
Mm,
versus revenue per mile. Um, it's revenue per mile doesn't always tell the story. Cost per mile does. So to your point there, cost per mile doesn't change on the revenue per mile, but revenue per mile, there's so many relative things, so many nuances that come in to change whether that's good or bad, right? I mean, I could say, dude, you're getting $1.90 a mile, and it's like, no, that's my cost. Well, not if I give you 750 miles a day, or the maximum you can do in a logbook for 3 days. That'll add up pretty decent.
yeah,
But if you get $1.90 a mile and you go Kansas City to Omaha for 185 miles, you are losing your rear end
yeah,
sideways.
yeah.
And so our team always looks at it revenue per day. And the miles matter. They're
Right.
considered. They're part of the
I like that
thought.
approach. Yeah,
Yeah, like it's like if 800 a day is the gross revenue of the truck, we better be going 150 miles or less, right? But so it just kind of raises up with it. So the cost the revenue per mile has to also be flux. So you can look at it per mile, but you just have to make sure you say, I'm gonna have a scale that as my miles go down or up, whichever way you want to look at it, that the revenue changes by by what it needs to make sure that we get enough per day.
yeah.
But
So if
yeah,
I'm
the cost
understanding you right, it feels like from that point you're able to kind of understand your break even point before you even haul the load.
100%. Yeah, we know what it costs to sit the truck and the driver
Yeah,
outside and do nothing. And then from there, we know what it costs per mile for fuel. And then you know what you can do from there, right? You know where you can make room or not make room, or take a loss on purpose to reposition the truck. There's things that we can do. Or, if you're one of those that's like the yes or no on the load all depends on the rate per mile, I would
yeah,
highly suggest that you take a step back, maybe a step up, and look down from a higher point of vantage point, and look at the fact that if you're saying no to something that will lose you $100 but position you somewhere where you can go make 1,000. Otherwise, you just wait for something that makes you 300.
right.
Right? You got to think through those things and how they work. Yeah, the fixed cost is really really important, right? And your fixed cost you can calculate pretty easy by knowing what your maintenance costs are, knowing what your fuel is per mile, that's not a fixed cost. Sorry, knowing what your truck costs you to own. All the things. When you like, oh, well, my truck note is this much. Okay, but how much per month is 22.90? If you extrapolate that for the year, how much per month is the tag? If you extrapolate that out 12 months that you pay once a year, how
Yeah.
much per month is the insurance? Which most people would think that, but some won't. And how much per truck per month is your liability, right? And divide that by, and you got to get this number, and you have to know it pretty well. And we like to pad it. Honestly, we like to pad it a little bit,
Yeah.
especially if we're trying to put maintenance in there, like an average maintenance. We have to pad that because that's not an exact science.
Right. It's going to vary.
So, yeah, yeah. So we've chosen on a quick, like, high level view to say whatever it costs to actually rent a truck, where we wouldn't have to do the maintenance, we're just going to put that number in as a high level. Now, when we're doing actual analyzing, it's totally different. But that's for like the quick thought process out and on the operations floor. It's like they can quickly make a decision based on making sure it's padded enough,
Right.
right? And that's just a different mentality that we have that I feel like is very rare.
Yeah.
But I don't. It feels like it's made us successful. And when you're shooting for, hey, just try to get 1,200 or 1,400 bucks to that truck in a day, however you have to do it, then you're not limited, right? Then you're not limited. Then you're not telling somebody no on something over a cost per mile, right? So
That's what
again,
it's all about, man.
yeah,
Tap it,
that's a
learn knowledge. That's what it's all about right there.
yeah, and we do short haul, to be fair. So we're doing 2 loads a day every day, plus maybe a local or something, trying to build that revenue up. So that's but it's still when somebody comes in and says, hey, we got this load, it was $6 a mile. I'm like, cool, what did it do? Go to Atchison? Like, how far did it go? Because for $6 a mile, it probably didn't go to Cali. So
Right.
you really have to. It's all relative, and there's just way more things to consider than that.
Yeah.
And then also, we don't pay per mile or per hour. Like, why should you have to work more hours to make more money? Why don't we just know how much it costs to have labor in the truck, right? And we pay you that percent of the revenue, and then your hourly is 100% up to you at that
Yeah.
point,
That's brilliant.
right? It's something that there's something that we try to coach, because a lot of drivers come in with that mentality of per hour. I'm worth per hour. I'm worth per hour.
Yeah.
No. Don't think about working more to make more. Let's think about working less to make more.
Love it.
Right? Like, be
And
efficient.
you've got my brain pinging on so many different spots here. Here's one thing is coming to my mind. You mentioned factoring a little bit ago. Now, obviously, you get your authority. You've got a dozen different, providers calling you, trying to sell you this, trying to sell you that. And I feel like at the end of the day, like, you want to be able to fund your own company. I mean, obviously, anything you pay into is money out the pocket. But in your opinion, when is factoring a smart choice for a trucking business?
Ooh, what a good question.
It's one of those industries, like, you love them or you hate them, but in a lot of cases, they're a tool that
They are a
can be
tool. They're
beneficial,
100% a tool.
but when do you use it?
I would say, man, there's so many things that come into this. So if you're gonna start it, no matter what, and you have no money,
Yeah.
use it. But negotiate. Don't take the first rate they give you. Negotiate it. Get yourself a thing. Give yourself an out, because you don't want to factor forever.
Yeah,
That
right.
it is a tool for moments. Now, I mean, you can factor forever for sure, because if you never want to hire an AR person, like collections person, stuff like that, you can think about that. Could be up to them. But it is you got to remember that interest rate is times 12, right? It's times 12 months. It's not just the rate of thing. It's not, if you look at APR, how every other interest rate is presented to you. The factor rates are presented on a per invoice basis, not an APR basis.
Right.
Right. So you have to understand that. But again, it's a cost of capital. It's a cost of doing business. It takes money to make money, and that's real. And so if someone can give you money fast and they charge you a little bit to do it, that is a way to go. If you get into a cash flow problem. So these are 2 times we've used it. My experience is from this. When I first started up, I didn't, have the money to pay the fuel bill and have the money to do all that. I didn't have money in the bank. First, I would suggest don't get into trucking unless you got money in the bank. because
Fair.
you need to have at least about 25K there to get the truck tagged, to get it ready, to make sure it's got
Sure.
all the things, to put new tires or whatever to do, and then to have 15,000 for an auto, because any more, you get a after treatment problem. It's 15,000 to fix, much less the engine and all the other things that make that truck actually move. So having something in the bank, because factoring is not going to fix that for you. That is not going to fix that for you. But what it does is it allows you to pay labor if you're going to hire drivers. It allows you to do things right away because you get your money versus the business of net 30. And I would say, negotiate a way out that makes sense to the factoring company.
Right.
That's what we had factoring for a year. And then when we renewed our deal, we said, hey, look, this is not normal. We know that. And when we're open to understanding your why if you don't want to do it, but we need to be able to pull customers back throughout the year and say, and because if you're like us, where you had, 50 brokerages that you're factoring, if you stop factoring them all at one time to get out of it, then you have a major cash flow problem because you all of a sudden go 30 days with no money coming in.
Right.
So unless you've saved that money to be prepared for that, which is really hard to do in trucking because our margins are crap as it is, you have to think about that. So I would say it's anytime you need cash and don't have it, and you're doing enough to cover the expense of the factoring, and you do the math right. If you're looking at it, as the same as you look at your mortgage rate, the rate of factoring is not the same, right?
Right.
The math. So it's, you have to think through what that actually means for you. But again, we've used it 2 different times. It has worked. We got to a place where we weren't making enough to pay bills. And so it's like, well, we have all this AR, several $100,000 that's owed to us. So if we factor that, that gives us a big check right now, and it could help us get through this. And then we just have to make sure that we fix what's broken before that cycles out. So with Chat GPT, for real, to go back to that, ask it what you should do. I say, this is my scenario. What are some options? Or hop on YouTube, maybe whatever factoring companies give you some content to kind of teach you about it and talk to you about it and give you some examples of how it worked. Learn
Right.
about it, learn about if it will work for you, but just make sure you're considering everything. I don't ever think it's a bad decision. Some people do. And to do it forever, I feel would be a bad decision. But I do not think doing it to help you get started or doing it with some kind of plan in mind is a bad decision.
Right. Right.
Like most people do. I think it's an amazing tool. In fact, I'm not sure if it started in trucking, but no one's heard of it, right? In most industries until very recently, maybe the last 5-10 years, is starting to like bleed out to other industries, and so people are using it.
Right.
Here's another example. This is actually a really good example. I should have said this one first, but this question there were so many ways to answer it. If you get a new contract, so let's say you're doing whatever you're doing and you get a contract that's like a 30% increase in your business, you're not trying to miss out on that, right? Yeah, in your business's gross revenue opportunity. Well, you have to, if it's a big project, if it's a couple $1 million a year project of some kind, you got to pay labor, you got to pay all the expenses before you get your first check from that project.
Yeah.
So there's a really good opportunity right there. Use it then to get the project started, right? And then hopefully that project, spits off enough EBITDA profits to save some money to jump out of factoring in a year from it or whatever.
Right.
But if you're in a situation where I got this $2 million deal, it's going to cost me $100,000 to start before I ever feel anything, then, and you have no other option, you can't go to a bank because maybe your credit's poor, or don't let that be your limited belief that you can't take the contract. Factoring is perfect for that.
Right.
It's absolutely perfect because it's way better than what they call MCA, merchant cash advance. That's like
Okay.
anywhere from 45 to 60% interest in most cases.
Wow.
And they charge you daily payments. Bam, 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 bam. They just kick your rear end. But those are going to be the ones marketing to you more than factoring does.
Yeah.
And they're trying to give you, I gotta get you, for our business, for our revenue, I'll get you $500,000, but you got to pay it back in a year at $750,000. What?
Like a payday
that can
loan.
be scary.
Crap.
Yeah. Yes, that can be scary. So factoring is a 2.5 times better deal at that point. Maybe 2.5. That's a little aggressive. But what it's a way smarter move than an MCA. MCA is a little easier because you don't have to do all the like invoice coordination and all the madness. But it is a really good way to start new contracts. I think that's my number one answer. If I could reverse that and put it first, when you get a new opportunity and you're worried about how you're going to cover it, that'd be one. Cash flow goes down, but you can figure it out and fix it. If you get a new opportunity that you need cash for, and or you're getting started and have no money, I would say those 3 times.
Man, you're tossing gold here again. And on that, it's bringing to my mind the other big thing in trucking is fuel, obviously. And there's like so much to consider there. Type of truck you got, how you're managing your fuel, how you're going about your routes, all this different stuff. But one aspect in there that we see so much of today is all these fuel cards. I mean, they're everywhere. How effective do you feel like fuel cards are at both helping you manage your fuel, but also the discounts?
Oh my gosh. Don't go with that one. Do not go with that one. If you're going to factor, most of these companies do that as well as part of like a value add, another benefits package that they give you. So I would say, even if you don't factor, you still want to go negotiate with some big fuel person. It's kind of like, being in a pool of something, a bunch of small people in a pool to buy something for cheaper.
Yeah.
That's what you want to find is where's the fuel cards that are using their fact that they've got 25,000 trucking companies on it, so they can get good discounts at certain places, but they'll sell it to one truck. They'll give it to one truck. They exist. They exist. Don't think you can't get it because you're not big enough. I had that limited belief too. Do not think you can't get it. And here's the trick that I believe is the way. And sometimes you won't get this at a one truck operation. However, you do not want a cash minus. You want a cost plus.
Okay.
And if that card doesn't give you a cost plus, you call until you find one that does. Because cash minus is a third of what cost plus can be. And that's an average. Sometimes it's a tenth of what, I mean, we've seen $1 off before. I'm trying to think quickly. When the fuel is going up is when it's not as good. When the fuel is going down, it is as good, because what they claim is that you're paying the price for which they paid to put that fuel in the ground at the truck stop plus 5-8 cents.
Gotcha.
And instead of the number on the sign minus 12 cents. The number on the sign minus 12 cents is attractive and it's exciting and it's still a discount. But people don't know to ask for cost plus, and I'm not smart enough to know that by myself. I was offered cost plus once. Or no, I'm sorry. No, I'll tell it like it is. I was at Prime Incorporated driving 20 years ago, and they had cost plus in their fuel book. When I was looking to see what discounts we get where, I was like, what the heck's cost plus? How do we know what the cost is for what the plus is going to be? Turns out it doesn't matter because it's better than cash minus. So now when I've negotiated fuel, the reason I know people don't know is when I say I want cost plus, they're like, oh, how do you know? What do you mean? How do you know about that? Like it's like a kind of a super secret probation thing or something, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm like, so now I want to share that with everybody. Speaking of mentorship, right? It's like ask for that or demand it, just like in the banks. Don't go in there begging and borrowing and whatever. Borrowing, but you know what I mean? It's same thing. Just demand cost plus. And if they say, well, we only have cost plus at Sap Brothers.
Yeah.
Fuel at Sap Brothers. Figure it out. If you can't, then obviously you got to do something different. But I'm pretty sure you hang up the phone with every one of them until one of them says they got away.
Right.
Don't just take the first 12 cents because 12 cents is exciting,
I think in any industry, when you're an entrepreneur, you're going after no money left on the table, right? Like if there's cash here to take, like you need to make your business profitable. Don't leave any money behind you. You're shooting yourself in the foot. But especially in trucking, when margins are tight, like we've addressed, it's vital to make sure that you are nabbing every cent you can to keep your business in shape. Because
very, very much,
even if you feel like, hey, we're getting by right now, the industry fluctuates. You will hit a hard time and hope that, or wish that, you had been in better shape and managed that money better. So make sure you're not cutting corners and keeping the money that's rightfully yours.
That's it. And also don't decide the fuel card based on emotion. And what I mean is based on a truck stop you like.
Right.
That's not the money way.
Right.
Don't do that. Change what truck stop you like for the money, right? Or stop for fuel there and stop for Arby's there, or whatever your thing is, right?
Right.
Make sure you're not emotionally connected and it's ended up costing you money. And when you're a one truck guy or a 2, 3 truck guy, I think that advice is kind of, it's not as, it doesn't affect you the same way. But if you intend to build a fleet, you need to build the fleet around the cheapest way you can possibly move, obviously. So, things like that matter. And I hear so many people say, oh, yours is only good at Love's. Well, I like Pilot and Flying J, right? And it's like, well, okay, if you can get a Flying J card that'll do the same thing, that'll match that, then by all means, try. But if
Yeah.
you find yourself in a spot where it's about the truck stop, just second guess yourself real quick and make sure you're not shortchanging yourself thousands a year just because you have, a connection to the whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, dirty showers, like there's a lot of things that do matter, but if it's just emotionally, like you just used to it, that's another thing.
I love it, man. And I feel a part 3 coming on, because every time I get you on here, like, we're just tapping into so many gold nuggets, and that's what it's all about, man. You got this experience in the industry and really just diving in, tapping into that lived and learned knowledge, stuff that you only learn because you've been through it, and it shows having these conversations with you. And I really, really appreciate everything you've dropped here. But before we do wrap up today, I want to dive into your company a little more, because I love your guys' business model, and I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing. Now, within kind of that concept of your business, has there been an aspect of that has kind of thrown companies off that you got to explain to them? And if so, what's been kind of the aha moment when they're like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Absolutely. I would say the fact that we're not perfect, but we look better than most because we staff our office with CDL holders. That's one of our tricks to service.
Love it.
It is a detriment to the office's perfect flow productivity, but the client doesn't know that. When we have a driver call in, we've got a backup. We don't have to call and tell them we're going to fail. It's more expensive. So going back on my watch your money thing for the fuel card,
Yeah.
it is more expensive, clearly, because as a driver, they can make, usually at least 50% more, if not more than that a year, if not double than office staff. But because they're also willing to work longer hours, we can pay them a little bit more to do more work, right? And we
Right.
just kind of find a way to make that work somehow. Sometimes they're willing to take a cut to not have to be on the road, right? And that helps. But it's mainly building redundancy into your system, especially when you're early, when all you have is who you are. That's all you have.
Yeah.
Show them that you care by reacting and reacting quick, and sending a plan of action email that says, we recognize that we failed. This is a thing that we either plan to do or that we've already figured out and we're going to do, and how we're going to prevent it in the future. And look, you don't have to say, we'll never let this happen again. Don't lie to them.
Right.
Don't lie to them. Again, I'm doing this out of order because these are questions I'm just on the fly with. So one of them is, tell the freaking truth
Love
when
it.
things go wrong.
Yeah.
That is one of the moments where clients are like, what? You just told us that your dispatcher forgot our load?
Yeah.
We forgot to put in CMS. We screwed up.
Yeah.
And they're like, we like that. We don't want you to screw our load up again, please.
Right.
Please don't screw our load up again. But we know we can trust you because you're willing to tell on yourself in a way that you could have said what everyone else says, which is add a flat tire.
Yeah.
Right? We
Or
are broken truck. Yeah, traffic, weather.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it. Just try telling them the truth. And
Yeah.
say, look, but that's where that action plan email comes in. You've told them the truth. You've embarrassed yourself. You got egg all over your face, but there's a freaking shower head right in front of you. Rinse it off. Send the thing. Don't overpromise, because guess what they know? Guess what every single customer knows, even the one that you don't think knows it? They all struggle too.
Yeah.
They all have they all have people in there working that are imperfect and make poor decisions and sleep in or whatever, right? They all deal with that.
Right.
And so at least that person at the level. Now, big boss CEO may not hear or care about that per se. But if you got that person you're working with, that hears and cares, they're going to tell Big Boss CEO.
Yeah.
Trust me. Trust me. We have clients that, just talk about us at random places, dinner with whoever, and I just happen to have an acquaintance of mine in that at the table that didn't even know they were at the table with somebody who did shipping, much less with my company, right? And they hear, and it's like, you never know who's going to talk about you, and you never know what they're going to say. But I can tell you that has gotten us farther than anything, is that people know we're going to give them the real, right?
Yeah.
Always be there. Man, you guys always answer the phone. Yeah, that's because we know this is important.
Yeah.
And we take it seriously, and your business matters. Go on site for a bid. Don't just bid. Go to them. Show up at their freaking, now schedule it. Don't just show up. Don't just cold go. But believe it or not, we're a yard management company. Okay. Yard management is nuancy AF. It's very nuancy. Every place has a different reason and different thing and different potholes and different gravel and different types of trailer and different whatever. Most these other places we're bidding against don't show up. And I want to go stand, and I need to spend 3 hours with you, either with you or just watching to see how this thing works, so we can bid it correctly and be as competitive as possible. And the reaction we get is, you're the only one we've seen out of 5 bidding people.
Yeah.
So go there. Like, show them you give a damn, right? And give a damn. Let's just try that for once. Don't worry about your money. If you do the give a damn, the money will be there.
Yeah.
And if they know that, then they're all in.
I love it, man. Well, it brings to mind, it's just as much as, you look at the industry, it's growing. There's so much technology. There's places like LinkedIn and podcasts and all this, and all that's wonderful, and it all holds its place. But like, at the end of the day, if you really look at it, trucking is still kind of an old school minded deal, and relationships go a long way. And it's like, like you said, you gain trust just by showing, yeah, I screwed up and I'm honest about it. That right there, while it sucks in the moment, they know, okay, well, he owned up, and he realized it, so we can grow from here. It happened.
Yeah. And you know what's never happened? They've never said, oh, is that how you do business? Right. They've never said something like that to us before. Oh, that's what you allow at your company? But I feel like that might be the fear, the false evidence appearing real of the situation, right? Is, oh man, how are they going to react if they know we suck? You don't suck, or you wouldn't be doing the business with them.
Right.
Right. And even if it's your first time and you suck that time, they're going to appreciate knowing that they're going to get what they need to get from you.
Yeah.
So don't be scared of that. I think I'd said on the last one, if I didn't, I told I have 2 very large clients. My business with them is not crazy large compared to them or anything, but they're very large companies, and a lot of 6 months worth of to get anything done type of companies. Right. I told him I was going bankrupt when I went bankrupt. And I said, your service will not change. And I was terrified. And I was, and mentors I did have back then were like, do not do that, dumbass. Don't do that. And I'm like, no. Cause this is going to be public knowledge. It's going to be on public record. It's not going to be like on the news, but it's going to be public record. And I got to change the company name. Then I have to lie if I don't tell them why. I'm definitely not going to lie.
The industry is a small world when you look at it, man.
Right. And when you tell them, hey, when you tell them we got a flat tire, we'll be late, and you don't tell your driver, and or your driver's not trying to lie for you, you wouldn't believe how often that happens. It's like, hey, man, I'm glad you got that tire fixed pretty quick. I'm glad you got here, man. We'll try to get you what tire? What tire? Right. And they're not going to call you on that most of the time. They're just going to be like, okay, this company plays that game. All right. Right. And if you do it to me, it's just not worth it. And so I would strongly suggest just not worrying about the result, other than knowing that you are going through your day as an honest individual and an honest company that's there to freaking do the best work you can. And then learn their business. Lastly, learn their business. You tell them what you need to be efficient with yours. You also learn theirs and make sure that you're bringing the value you can bring, versus just saying, well, this is what we do. We're there at this time. And if you can't load it at this time, we're not going to do it. Okay, fine. If that's a decision, that's okay. I get that. I'm down with that, actually. But talk to them a little bit. Like, tell them why. Because you never know. If there's a why and they're like, oh, well, the truth is we got this one guy on second shift that if we just move this one thing and it wouldn't be that big a deal to us, we could actually load you at that time instead every day.
Yeah.
You never know. So, just realize you don't know. That's the truth. Just walk through your whole entire life knowing you don't know crap, and you're there to learn.
Exactly.
If you walk through life like that, boy, you learn a lot, and you realize how much you don't know, right? And nobody else does either. So it's okay. It's safe. So it's good.
Blake, it has been an absolute honor to be able to get you back on and keep sitting down and having this conversation. I have no doubt we're going to get you back on here for another topic in the future. So much to tap in and learn from you, man. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to throw out some shameless plugs. How do people find out more about your business, more about you, and get in touch?
Yeah, we're looking for everything right now, from office work to drivers and everything in between. We have a new project starting down in Pittsburgh, Kansas. If you're in that area and you're interested in yard spotting or shuttling, we want to talk to you. And finding me, LinkedIn's the best spot. That's the only social media I use. And Blake Lappen, you'll find me pretty easy. And then as far as our business, if you need anything shipped short haul within 300 miles of Kansas City, back out and back, anywhere in that radius, we got you. Dry van, lift gate, and then we do a lot of power only work. So if you've got trailers and you just need moved around, we're doing that as well. And then of course, if you want to know more about yard management, what's that about? If you're a business that ships truckloads at all, what does that mean? Look us up, because we're fractionalizing the service to where, yeah, if you thought, well, if I got to pay 300 grand a year to have this truck out here and do this job, then we can't do it. Not anymore. So if you're a shipping facility, you need our services for trucking, or you want to learn about yard management, we're all down to educate, completely free. We'll come sit with you for as long as you need to understand it, and just kind of see if we might be able to help you. So that would be awesome. www.spotontms.com. Spotontms.com.
Love it, man. A true mentor. I love it. I really, really appreciate you coming on, man. And thank you for everything you do for the industry. And I'm not just going to say bye. I'm going to say until next time, because I know for a fact we're going to get you back on here. We got more gold nuggets to pull out of that head of yours.
Hey, I can dig it. Look, I again, everybody needs to understand, I didn't come out of the womb like this. And I don't think I'm what he's saying, what Alex is saying. I don't think that at all. But I I can respect that it may be real, and I just want to help. So if you don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and give me a little grace if I'm slow to respond, but I will respond to you. So I'm not that big of a situation yet where I'm can't do that, and I don't have a AI assistant for that yet. So
His people
reach
will
out.
contact your people. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
if you want to start something, and you're like, how do I even do this? I'm very, very happy to help.
Love it. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on today. All of you out there watching, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a great day.